What we're seeing unfolding in America's major left-wing cities can only be described as the Great Shrink, the great sort, people voting with their feet, and they're voting against left-wing policies despite the fact that while they're there, they quite literally vote for those policies that end up leading to the decline of these major cities. And today we're going to talk about the city of Portland, a city that honestly, I hesitate to even discuss because it's one of the Antifa capitals of the entire nation. They had something like 100 consecutive nights of rioting post the death of George Floyd during the Black Lives Matter riots, and you had the mayor, who I actually had to end up rooting for to retain office because he was on the cusp of losing to a member of Antifa in their Democratic primary, which, make no mistake about it, was the mayoral election for Portland. Now, there are a number of factors that have led Portland to this significant drop, which, by the way, is the 6th highest of any major city in the United States of America, trailing other cities like San Francisco that actually lost a stunning 7% of their population during the same time frame. But before we get into all of the details and the numbers, this video is sponsored, so let me toss it to the sponsor, then we'll bring it back over here and we'll discuss it on the other side. The signs of future economic trouble for investors and savers are all around us. Bloomberg is warning of, quote, a severe economic reset, and gold appears as a caged bull awaiting a catalyst. In May of this year, JP Morgan said cut stocks, buy gold, and hold on to your cash. And people at Wells Fargo believe that gold might be in a super cycle and it could last for the next 6 years. And in fact, they might be projecting $3,000 an ounce for gold. The time for gold is here and demand is already soaring. This is why I'm happy to tell you that I'm partnering with National Gold Group. You can call them at 866-826-2603 and talk to somebody about protecting your assets by moving them into gold. Now, right now, they're running a feeless transfer for their gold IRAs if you call them at that number and mention that I send you, and they will talk you through with their world-class, first-class, American-based customer service and let you know how you can get into precious metals to hedge your bets against the financial disaster. National Gold Group is rated as one of the top gold dealers by Consumer Affairs, and again, you can reach them at 866-826-2603. There is always a risk with any investment, and past performance is never a guarantee of future results.
Will Metzold in Southeast Portland, and new data from the U.S. Census Bureau shows Portland lost the 6th most people of any big U.S. city in the last year. Many people say that data just backs up that Portland just is not what it used to be now.
So obviously this is 100% true. Portland is not what it used to be. It used to be a burgeoning city full of young people that were actually living in a relatively clean environment, known for its innovative restaurants and all kinds of things that made Portland unique. It was always a pretty left-wing city in comparison to other cities in the United States of America, but it really has fallen apart over the last couple of years due to the fact that the American left wing has gone completely insane off the rails in that same time frame. Now, we've covered the decline of Portland on this channel before. In fact, I did a specific detailed report on this Nike community center that is actually historic in the city of Portland, in that we had Black civil rights activists asked Nike to open up a store here, support the opening up of the store there, and Nike delivered. And that institution, which opened up, I believe, during the 80s, which was the height of the crime wave in the United States of America, has endured. It's been an integral part of the community. However, they can no longer operate as they used to due to the fact that Portland refuses to prosecute crime. So all of a sudden, a revitalized Black neighborhood is descending back into decay based on the fact that that store and other stores nearby can no longer rely on law enforcement to do its job to hold up order. And as we talked about time and time again, crime drives poverty, so it's driving those places out of business. But it's not just the businesses that are leaving, it is in fact the residents. Now, as I said, Portland has lost almost 3% of its population from the time period of July 2020 to July 2022, which of course coincides with the Black Lives Matter riots, which is the 6th steepest loss in the country. And by the way, the places that are gaining population, leading the pack, is actually Fort Worth, Texas, which just goes to show you that if you have decent governance, good governance, you will draw people in, as we are seeing an absolute decline and disaster happen in all these poorly governed metropolises.
Amanda Guest has lived in Portland for about 15 years. She says she enjoys it and is troubled to hear many are packing up and leaving.
I know it's been really tough for a lot of people through the pandemic, and it's been hard to see, Portland at the forefront of some of those tensions.
Now, if you were to imagine a Portland resident in your brain, like somewhere right now, or maybe even right now, it would be this woman. A woman who happens to be a dog mom, walking through the park, obviously looks like she's been hitting the shrooms, and talking about how the pandemic, and Portland was at the forefront of the pandemic, is driving people away, as we see B-roll of the Black Lives Matter riots, smash windows, and things that are not about the pandemic, they're about left-wing terrorism, actually driving people away. I'm not saying that this woman deserves it. She's been there for 15 years, so obviously she is well invested in the community, and I actually support people who try to make better of the communities that they live in, but I'm just saying, this woman is a stereotype, and honestly, it's to a point where I might not even believe that she's real. Maybe she doesn't actually exist. Maybe we're all being punked. If you agree with me, let me know down in the comments below.
New census data shows Portland lost the 6th most people among U.S. cities in the last year at more than 8,000. Larry May, who has lived here since 1985, says the data is discouraging.
It's like Portland died. And the tourists haven't come back like it used to be, especially the Japanese. They love this city.
So here you have an elderly resident talking about how tourism has essentially died in the city of Portland. And by the way, this is a common pattern that we're seeing in a lot of these crime-ridden left-wing cities that have essentially embraced the criminal as the proper moral and prudent thing to do. It's completely backfired, and he even specifically references the fact that Japanese tourists are not coming back to the city, which apparently was something that was popular. Now, a lot of people are going to say, Portland's a crap hole, Portland sucks, Portland's terrible, but remember, this is a central metropolis in the heart of the Pacific Northwest, and the Pacific Northwest has a lot of natural beauty. There's a lot of reasons why people would want to visit a city like Portland and go out into the wilderness and enjoy themselves, and all of that is being undercut by the policies of their left-wing government. And by the way, Oregon as a whole has also suffered due to this. So people aren't just moving out of Portland into the adjoining burbs, they're fleeing the state.
Guest cites housing prices and the job market as reasons people are leaving. May says the biggest reason is safety, blaming cuts to police.
I hope they get it back up again because the crime is really bad. The shootings and it's not the Portland I knew.
Again, it's always interesting how your left-wing activists, your people in your proverbial ivory towers, will tell you that it's everything but what the people on the ground tell you. This guy points to the fact that safety is the number one issue, the fact that crime is rising, the fact that there's no consequences for criminality in the city of Portland, as demonstrated by the hundreds of riots that happened in a row during 2020, as demonstrated by Antifa being allowed to attack a courthouse night after night after night with no mention from representatives in the Democratic Party, and based on the fact that they took that poison pill that a lot of left-wing cities did and decided to cut from their police department, and then, of course, they realized that that was a disaster, so they tried to restore some of the funding, only to discover that they essentially killed recruitment. We have a horrible recruitment problem across this country in terms of police departments, and when you cut funding, when you signal you're on the side of the criminals, you're not going to get the officers back just by restoring it to where it previously was. Why would you work as a police officer in the city of Portland, especially since it's one of those cities where not only do you elect a mayor, but that mayor is also the acting police commissioner, and they were this close to electing a crazy Antifa woman in place of their already too woke and insane mayor that already existed, as not just the mayor, but as the head of the police department. You cannot operate there. You cannot be a cop there. If you are a cop in the city of Portland, look for a transfer, start your career over, because it's only a matter of time before the city proves, as they prove time and time again, that they're not on your side, they're on the criminal side.
The Portland Business Alliance says these trends are concerning in its 2023 State of the Economy report. It noted high and rising vacancy rates in downtown offices and increased crime. Addressing the city's population, it says people and businesses vote with their feet, and they are not voting for Portland, the city, or the region in the way they have in the recent past.
Look, so many of these businesses in cities like Portland rely on foot traffic in order for them to function. So when you decide that homeless people have God-tier rights to camp out in public, can do whatever they want, can urinate and defecate all over the sidewalk, it turns out that drives down the number of people, law-abiding people who are interested in spending money, who want to walk those streets. They may vote progressive and say all the appropriate lines about how homeless people are just people in crisis that need our help and we need to save them, but in reality, when their revealed preference is shown for all of us to see, they don't want to be anywhere near these people. They understand the danger, and they're not going to go shop at a place that's being actively looted and or terrorized while they can just order their products online. And that's what we're seeing. A lot of vacant office space. This is a common feature in a lot of major metropolitan areas, not just because the pandemic revealed that you don't need to be occupying all these office space for a lot of different jobs, but because the prolonged shutdown reoriented a lot of people's thinking, and the embrace of rampant criminality during that time made a lot of people think twice about resuming their leases and all of that. This is a concoction of multiple different factors that have led Portland to this point. And again, I remember years ago, people would visit it because it was a trending city, because they enjoyed themselves. Sure, they had some problems, some issues with homeless people, but the homeless people weren't granted these God-tier rights over each and every regular citizen in the city.
The Portland Business Alliance says if the current trends continue, the economic outlook here is as concerning as any time since twin recessions hit the U.S. in the 1980s.
Isn't that crazy? The numbers that are being seen by these business alliance groups and all of that are akin to twin recessions from the 1980s. And I remember the 1980s recession a little bit, not from memory, but from reading about it, and how essentially a huge change in how you're taxed in terms of real estate caused a collapse in real estate housing prices. And now, according to the Business Alliance, Portland is looking to be hit in a similar manner as it was hit in the recession. Now, a lot of people are going to say that Portland always sucked, or they remember, and I also remember, Portland from 2015 to 2019 being an Antifa capital, being a capital of left-wing violence, and having all these other problems. But we need to actually look at the data so we can talk about how those pre-decline indicators weren't actually reflected in what we're seeing right now. So what we talked about was the fact that they've lost about 3% of their population from July 2020 to July 2022. For the previous 30 years, the city of Portland saw a population increase each and every year. So the decline is something that is unprecedented in the last 35 years in the city of Portland. On top of that, we've actually seen an increase of the homelessness population in the city of Portland of about 50%. On top of that, we've also seen 700 encampments in the city of Portland of homeless people, and that is a threshold they did not even think they were going to come close to reaching, and they've reached that in their recent history. On top of that, the decline is so dramatic, it is so ridiculous in the city of Portland that Mayor Ted Wheeler, the woke garbage trash man of a mayor, one of the weakest people in all of American politics, is actually trying to ban camping in public because even this woke, suck up to Antifa, left-wing progressive, eschews all the violence that we've seen in Portland kind of guy, knows that it's an unsustainable decline across the city. Mayor Wheeler has actually authorized homeless encampments to be separated out from the downtown area, which I think is a good step, and I actually talked about it in reference to Bill Maher talking about these types of homes that we built post-World War II, which is great because this represents a moving away from this housing first kind of policy in terms of homelessness. Again, this is all being done by Ted Wheeler of all people. That's how you know that they're at a crisis point. And again, that crisis point is represented by the criminal justice numbers. We have seen an 11% increase in property crime over the same period of time. We have a 16.9% increase in burglaries, and major retailers, the most recent of which being REI, have also announced that they're just leaving the city of Portland. They've had enough, and we're actually seeing some kind of course correction coming from the city. And hopefully, and yes, I am being hopeful for the city of Portland, because if they can turn it around, if they can be an example, or any of these major left-wing cities, these left-wing hellholes, can be an example of reversing course, then I think that will shine a light on other cities that have failed. If they all decline and it just seems like it's inevitable, then there's no incentive structure, there's no path forward for places that don't want to end up like them. They end up turning it around, but it's not looking good. They've allowed the decay for far too long. They set up systems to basically protect the rights of the criminals over the law-abiding citizens, and it's going to take a lot of years and honestly electing better people and probably allocating much more money to the police in order to do this course correction. Look, I have no sympathy for Portland politicians. I have a baby amount of sympathy for the residents of Portland because they had a choice to vote in the Antifa lady as the mayor or the same crappy mayor that they already had, and they chose the less bad option. So I hope it does turn around. I don't want to report time and time again about the increase in crime in the United States of America, about major city after major city collapsing, retailer after retailer closing. I would like some positive news to share with all of you, an example, a shining beacon, a light that I can point to and say that is the path forward, but all we're going to see is more and more pain until these cities fully course correct, until the residents have had enough, and unfortunately, they're not really at that point yet. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, you show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the end of Portland. Till next time.